Morning, folks. Glad you could join us today. And if you're not watching it live, hope you're well at whatever time or day this is. So yeah, just wanted to run through a few slides around just getting you understanding where we're at in terms of both the return to university and to sport, because it's fair to say that lots have happened since we locked down in March. So, but the picture a lot clearer now, which gives us the confidence to present some of this information to you. So, just move on to the roadmap. So I know many of you might not be in Scotland, and many of you will be in Scotland, but there is the Scottish Government have been updating all the time with the roadmap through lockdown easing. So this is the current guidance which is out just now, to do with where we're easing. So you won't need to read all of this, but if you're interested in bingo halls, for example, they've opened up in Scotland, so you'll be able to have that when you come back. But the most important stuff for us is obviously the sports side of things. So on the 24th of August, we were allowed first outdoor sport to be able to take place in an organised way, and that's in contact for all ages. Previously that was just for youth, so that was a great step forward. And then we also had the date moved to start on the 31st of August for all gyms and swimming pools and indoor sports courts to open, with the caveat to the indoor sports that had to it was non-contact to begin with. And then just moving on to that last sort of box, the 14th of September, where soft play indoors can open, etc., etc. But really it was about the indoor contact sports then being able to allow to take place. So we're moving through that. That's an indicative date just now on the Monday the 14th. We hope that is realised, because that would be brilliant for the start of term, with that being week one. But because of that, we've just had to adjust a few of the club tasters to be across both welcome week and week one, to make sure that the students get as close to normal experience of that sport as possible. What does it mean in terms of sport specifically? So that's the overview. In terms of additional sport guidance, there is limits there is restrictions that will be in place on that, and we're working through those just now. So and these are being updated as we speak. So we don't quite have the full picture, but we've got close to a full picture, which gives us some assurance for this plan moving forward. SFA, SRU and Scottish Hockey Union have pulled out 3 examples where they have put out occupancy on their spaces per half pitch. You can see that it's different for all 3. So for football, it's 18+4 coaches per half pitch, and you can't substitute out a coach for a player. But the standard Sport Scotland guidance just now for sport is 30 people on a half pitch. With one coach. Now, where that then will get broken down into will be into the different spaces that we operate within. Obviously, that's an outdoor space. We will then start looking at what the indoor space will be, and we'll get the guidance for that very soon, but we don't have that currently. One rule of thumb that the governing bodies will be using is the 9 metre squared suggestion from Sports Scotland, which is written into their guidance, and that's what we've taken forward for our studio spaces, for classes, and our gym, in terms of working out the occupancy within that space, because they're not at the hands of governing body activity essentially, whereas governing bodies like netball and basketball and handball will probably stipulate, hopefully, the same number of people per court, but we don't quite have that full detailed information as of yet. Governing bodies are constantly updating those, so we are, the SU team and all the club committees are all on task to try and make sense of those, because they can be quite detailed and there can be wee nuances to them, but that's informing our activity, and unfortunately until a governing body states that it's okay for the sport to be able to take place, we won't be having that activity taking place. So in the example of football, football has given the guidance that it can go ahead, so that can go ahead. Currently, if I take netball can't go ahead in a contact sense, but can go ahead in a non-contact sense. We will just wait to transition into contact as soon as the governing body gives the green light. So we're staying updated to that. So yeah, the 14th of September, and what I mean by non-contact is staying 2 metres apart at all times. So there'll be a lot of drills. There'll definitely not be small-sided games, but it will just be purely training drills where it's more individual based. So that's how it looks like. But hopefully, by the time you guys all arrive on campus or arrive to Oriam for your sport, things will be back to close to normal. One critical thing that's changed in terms of the guidance, because and I don't know how aware of you are of the current sort of government guidance around households and number of people. So, for example, if you're going into a pub or a restaurant, it tends to be 8 people across 3 households is the rule in terms of government rule, and that allows for social distancing to take place as well as setting a limit on the number of people. What they've done in terms of in the sport context, they've been able to say, right, if 15 people or 18 people are coming in to take part in sport, they can then be part of a training bubble, which means that they do not need to socially distance during that period. So in the likes of football and rugby right now, that can happen. However, people should still remain socially distanced before and after the activity. And I'll go on and talk about some Oriam specific stuff just now, but that's a critical step forward in allowing activity to take place, because it would have been quite crippling if it was just non-contact across all sports. So really great that we've got that for a number of sports right now, and then hope that from the 14th we'll have that ability to go to contact within the parameters that are set around occupancy of the facility spaces. So moving on more closer to home, Oriam have created a video. This is the shortened version of it, but just encourage you to watch this and share it with your friends and your classmates who are coming back and using Oriam.
We're asking you to do 3 simple things before you leave home to head towards Oriam. 1. Check for symptoms. Please follow current government guidance and check if you have any of the COVID-19 symptoms before you leave home. If you do, please follow the guidance and stay away. 2. Pre-book. All activities must be booked in advance, including the fitness suite. You can book online or via the app, the new Our Oriam app, which you can find in your app store. If you have any issues, please contact reception on 0131 451 8400 or email hello@oriam.hw.ac.uk. And 3, bring only your essentials. We've had to make some changes which will affect what you need to bring with you. So come ready for your activity, come changed, and bring only with you what you can carry. Bring a filled water bottle. Water fountains are currently not available. And remember to bring your Oriam membership card. You're going to need it to get into the car park and the fitness suite. On arrival to Oriam, please make your way to the main entrance. All other entrance points to Oriam are currently closed. Please do not come to Oriam any more than 10 minutes before your booking. This will limit the amount of people gathering and allow us to manage the flow of people as safely as possible.
Okay, so that was the pre-arrival video, which is slightly shorter than the full video, but I will go through a few key points that can come from that. But we do encourage you to go away and watch that full 7-minute video because there's a lot of good information in there and just makes you ready and confident in coming back. That the guys have got the facility back to a standard which will meet with all sort of health and safety guidance. In terms of the good news around Oriam operation, so we were the last ones closed and we were delighted with that. and because we were very stringent on reducing down, and ultimately we're having to then scale back up again. So we're pretty pleased with that. One of the first to open in Scotland, and we'll be opening on the 31st of August next week. So the guys are working really hard behind the scenes to make that happen. In terms of the gym, the gym is obviously open. It will be bookable in 1 hour slots, and all the kit has been moved to be socially distanced. We've also acquired additional space in the main sports centre, which is up the back of behind the squash courts, next to Hall 2, essentially up in the viewing area. That whole bit's been allocated as a gym space to allow for the spread of equipment into that space. So hopefully all gym equipment that you guys would have had access to previously is all available to you as normal, within those sort of parameters that we're working on within those 1 hour time slots. In terms of the hall space, none of the hall space have been taken out for use, and that's a critical point because there's a number of universities in Scotland and UK where that has had to happen due to limiting space, but we're very lucky in Oriam with the volume of facilities that we have, and we've not needed to use that, which is great from our perspective. It allows for more sport to take place. In terms of fitness classes, there's a new programme being released for that, starting as of next week. If there's any keen beans wanting to get back in, then it'll be in Hall 1 for the first 2 weeks, and then it'll be back into the studios after that. So, but great to have the fitness class programme back up and running to maintain that offer to the members. And finally, casual sport, another staple diet of the Oriam membership offer. We are looking to move squash, badminton and football back online. They will be slightly different in the fact that there'll be 45-minute bookings, which will be on the hour or half hour, depending on the facility. It just allows us for a 50-minute gap in between bookings. But the guys are working hard to try and get those booked on. It'll be a lighter touch on week commencing the 31st, with hopefully from week commencing the 7th, a lot more availability for casual sport to be able to book and taking place. The one actual thing I should say around that casual sport, which wasn't referenced in the bad news section, is for any sort of casual usage, you need to bring your own equipment. There isn't any hire equipment essentially available from the Oriam desk. Yeah, fortunately, with good news, there's always some bad news, and we've interpreted this as bad news because it's slightly different to what we normally do. Actually, the picture is very positive. But masks are mandatory in all non-sport areas, and that's a Scottish Government directive, not something that Oriam have stipulated ourselves. So we need to be compliant with that, and that will be within the corridors, all corridors, and within the toilets. That will obviously be open for public use. So masks are mandatory, so make sure you've got them, like your phone, like your wallet, like your keys, like your purse, whatever, on you at all times. This is a critical one because the flow of people is a challenge for Oriam, given the size of the building and the number of facility spaces and number of groups that come in. It's really critical that whenever your session starts, you do not turn up any earlier than 10 minutes before the session takes place, and that just allows for the correct flow of people to happen within the building, so that the corridors aren't too busy and then you actually feel uncomfortable in the fact that you're with a significant volume of people. However, the social distancing part is reduced down. We would encourage you to stay as socially distanced as possible right throughout the corridors. But obviously, with masks in that space, that obviously reduces the need for that down to a certain extent. In the changing rooms, the guidance is that they are currently out of use. Please do come changed or semi-changed for that. There is an ability, obviously, in the video to carry some items around with you, including in gym spaces. So just be aware of that, and that just means a bit of forward thinking around what your day is going to involve, whether if you're coming in for a class and then maybe going to the gym afterwards, or you're just coming up for some sport, just purely to take part in some sport. Then please do remember that, and as soon as that guidance changes, we'll let you know, but we're expecting it not to change anytime soon. given it's such a high risk factor with lots of people coming in and out of that space and touching lots of points. So another thing that again is slightly different to normal, so it just requires a bit of your support, is cleaning equipment. So work with your club committees on this, because they're we've asked them to ensure that this happens. So Oriam/the Sports Union will provide product to all user groups, whether it's a student group or a community group, and the responsibility on the cleaning the equipment sits with the user group, very much in the same way as maybe you've seen on BBC News with schools, you know, kids wiping down their desks after they've sat at the one desk. So it's very much in the same sort of line as that. But there's additional time required for that cleaning period, which will mean that your session will likely finish 10 minutes before the end of the session. So if you are a half an hour, if you finish at half past, your session will actually end at 20 past. Just to allow the committee in to be able to do that cleaning of the equipment, and then for the operational staff to change it over for the next group coming in. So, and then every person, and this is bad news because it's operationally a challenge, but we need, again, it's a non-negotiable. We need to be compliant with it. Every single person that comes into Oriam, we must know about, and that's why there's track in place for the bistro in terms of a QR code. For all the activity groups, it's a responsibility on the booker, and we as the sports union are the booker of the facilities. So we've worked with the clubs to do that. But just, you know, East Fife and Hearts, they will all have their own track and trace responsibilities as being part of Oriam. So yeah, lots of good news, but a bit of bad news in terms of that need to comply with, and slightly different from normal. There's some more good news in terms of the club training. So within the parameters that have come forward, we're in a really strong position to be able to offer all sports activity, pretty much. The only activity that we are struggling with right now is snow sports, in terms of access to training facilities. However, we'll know that by the 14th of September, when we'll be able to get access to some snow sports facilities. All other sports are back up and running, which is great, because the picture was so unclear over the last couple of months that we never knew if we would actually get to this position. So that's really strong news. What we need to do is, and then again, this is another sort of government stipulation around the sports starting up, is there must be a 15-minute gap at least between sessions, particularly those that are indoor. So that will be part of the booking system, which means that sports union activity will start at either 5 or 5:15, because we've had to just bump everything forward a wee bit. So community sport will tend to start at 6:45 and then 8:30, with Oriam still closing at 10 o'clock as normal, and operating hours are still meant to be as normal, apart from late weekend stuff where we need to think about the demand that's there. But our intention is to be full operational hours right from the get-go. In terms of the sessions organisation, and this is something that's very live right now, we're not quite finished, but as soon as we do, we've set a deadline of this by the end of next week. So if you're watching this behind, hopefully you will have some of this information. But right now, we don't have the detail of the programme for next year. Some of the principles we've applied is same as last year, and trying to get at least 1, if not 2 sessions per week for every single member who was in the club last year. And that's helped guide us in terms of our principle of allocating space. That what we've had to do as part of that is just create some minor changes to some of the activity. So if, for example, badminton tend to have about 4 or 5 hours in, or 3 to 4 hours in Hall 2, for example, and a couple of evenings a week, that's just been split down into either 60-minute or 90-minute sessions, and then you will then book onto that session, come in for that activity, then leave, and then the next group can then come in. So it allows us to make the most out of the bookings that we've got and maximise the occupancy. So your sessions will still remain. You will still have plenty of opportunity access activity. It's just it'll be in a slightly different schedule, which will really help you, because obviously we're moving to a responsive blended learning. Timetables are slightly different. and you know, some of the classes might go on to 5 o'clock, which makes that 5 o'clock start a bit more challenging. But because you are able to maybe pick and choose which sessions you can go along to, it allows for a lot more flexibility through the week, rather than just saying, right, one club has one session per week and that's only one that you can get access to. So it allows for a lot of flexibility through the week, which is great. What the guys will need to do behind the scenes is just make sure that the allocation of those slots are fair. So the clubs will be working on that based on your availability, and might need to allocate you specific sessions that you can attend based on your availability, just to help make sure that some sessions aren't completely full to the brim and got a waiting list, and other sessions aren't as busy. So there's a bit of work behind the scenes to do on that, which we'll need your support with. What we've also done, and this is another great news story and shows a really strong relationship between Oriam and the sports union, is that Wednesday afternoons, which are traditionally used for matches and for weekends, are being allocated training slots to allow for the, you know, an example of rugby, which I said the occupancy was 15 before per half pitch. They normally have about 100, 120 guys on the Monday night. Clearly that's not going to be possible just now, so we're going to have to spread their activities through the week, but that's where we're using additional sessions in terms of Wednesdays and weekends to allow for that to be able to take place. There's also lots of availability in the mornings, and it's been something we've been really pleased to see a lot of clubs take up in the past, but there's more opportunity for clubs to take up additional sessions in the morning, for you to add a second or third training session onto your week, and there's availability for the sports union to do that should it be needed by the club or wanted by the club, which we can be reactive in terms of the membership numbers as well. So very strong picture. Just before we go to the website, there was one other point just to reference as part of that. That I haven't put in, but essentially in terms of Oriam's operation, in terms of you coming into the sports union activity, there will also be holding areas for some spaces before you come into the session. So if you're in the indoor pitch, for example, you'll be asked to go straight to the seating area, and you'll be allocated a space within the seating area depending on which pitch that you are on. And that will be the same for the Hall 1. So along the street corridor, there will be sectioned off parts which relate to the exact court that you're going on to. And that's to allow us to manage that flow of people, and for the indoor and the outdoor spaces, that actually means that we don't need to add the 15-minute gap for every activity, because there's that natural seating area which allows for people to be separate to the activity that's taking place. So we're trying to be as resourceful as possible around what we have, and while still sticking with the guidelines. So forgot to mention that in the slides.